under surveillance this morning, discussing a ceasefire.
We have a meeting with President Putin. I think it's going to be a good meeting, but the more important meeting will be the second meeting that we're having. We're going to have a meeting with President Putin, President Zelensky, myself, and maybe we'll bring some of the European leaders along, maybe not. I don't know that it's going to be very important. We're going to see what happens. And I think President Putin will make peace. I think President Zelensky will make peace. We'll see if they can get along.
So here's the latest so far. President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin set to meet in Anchorage to discuss ending the war in Ukraine. Putin praising Trump ahead of today's meeting and said he's willing to start work on a new arms control treaty. Bloomberg's Annmarie has the latest on the ground. Morning, Annmarie.
Good morning, John. When it comes to what President Putin wants out of this meeting, it's not even just about what's going on in terms of his invasion of Ukraine. He wants to restart the bilateral cooperation between Washington and Moscow. That's what you just mentioned when it comes to arms control, which that treaty, by the way, the New START, expires February of next year. He also wants to talk about economic cooperation. We are just south of the Arctic Circle, some place where you can, have these critical minerals, potentially cooperation there. And then most notably, obviously, the Russian president is going to be pushing for sanctions relief. And I think it's quite telling who the Kremlin is bringing along. They're bringing along their finance minister, Anton Siluanov, on top of the foreign policy individuals that have really surrounded President Putin for years. And President Trump, just sitting on Air Force One, waiting for the president to arrive, is his team. And alongside the likes of Marco Rubio, who you would, of course, expect to be there, his Secretary of State and National Security Advisor, the president is also bringing along Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Now, Scott Bessent spoke to you and I this week, Jonathan, and he said that they are prepared for either direction: sanctions relief if the meeting goes well, or to double down on sanctions if the meeting does not go well, really signaling that those secondary tariffs that the administration has put on Russian crude going to India that will kickstart at the end of the month, if there's not an agreement, potentially that could mean this administration is willing to take the step to go to Russia's biggest purchaser, and that's China. So I think it's really telling who is also accompanying these two leaders besides the usual suspects in the foreign policy sphere.